This looks like it should be a great improvement here in the hand tool shop, and it has pretty good rebound. Today's video is brought to you by Skillshare, an online learning community. Welcome back to Black Bear Forge. We've returned from our trip to Iowa and Handworks. Great time out there, but it has been a distraction for everything else I need to get done for the last couple of months, so there hasn't been any progress in the little shop. So I thought I'd update you on where we are and what I hope to get done maybe in the next few weeks, few months, something like that, before winter gets here anyways. Now, one thing I have accomplished is replace that rickety workbench and the lousy vise that was in here with this nice big heavy timber bench. Shouldn't say that was a lousy vise, it was a little vise, and it just really isn't the thing I want to use all the time. Now, I was able to pick up a much nicer bench vise at the Rocky Mountain Smiths Conference this summer. This is a Rock Island number 594. Not a swivel vise. I don't think I really need a swivel vise on this bench. It's got 4.5-inch jaws, but it is a good solid vise, and for an old vise, it's in very good condition. Now, the bench top itself is about 4.5 inches thick, 26 inches wide over here, and about 13 inches wide over there. I don't really need a full width bench over there. I just thought that'd be a nice place for a few simple things, some tools to sit on. Most of the bench work will happen over here in front of the window where I have better light. I set the legs up on concrete blocks so that they're not sitting on the dirt. It gives them more support. It also means they're not going to pick up moisture and rot. But on top of the concrete blocks, I put a little rubber conveyor belting, so there's a separation there too. And this bench should be more than adequate for anything we're going to do in this little shop. I also put the old 6-inch post vise that we had over in the other shop on a portable stand over here. Sort of portable. The whole thing probably weighs about 500 pounds. It's a 300-pound base with a post that's been filled with sand, and then the weight of the vise, which is probably over 100 pounds as well. So it's a good solid stand, but still has some of the downside. It does move a little bit, and it can be wiggled, so it may not be ideal, and eventually I might get around to setting a post in the ground, probably concrete it in and use a steel post like I did for the new vise in the other shop. But for now, this gives me the ability to move this around just a little bit. Maybe I want it here, maybe a little over one way or the other. Maybe I want it over here somewhere, but it's not fixed at this point, so I can rearrange the shop a little bit. Hopefully this is going to work, and if I level out the dirt a little bit, I can probably make this more solid. Might even be able to drive some stakes in next to it, or maybe even drill some holes through this and drive some 1-inch bars 2 or 3 feet deep into the ground, so it's a little bit less wiggly. We'll just see what it needs as time goes on. Now, the big thing that this shop has been waiting for is to get a chimney on the coal forge. And this is something that I'm ready to do. It's just been kind of hot outside and I haven't really had the time to deal with it. I don't want to be up on the roof dealing with all the roof issues, and most of this installation takes place up on the roof. Also have to do the chimney for the little wood stove that's going to go in the opposite corner. So I'm waiting for some cooler weather. It's going to be 80 the next few days, but next week we might get down into the 70s, and if it clouds up a little bit, that might be a good time to get up on the roof. I actually have all the chimney pipe for this, and we'll discuss what I'm doing for chimney pipe when we get around to putting it in. Now, all the bits and pieces for the chimney installation are piled up over in this corner, and I've got an old workbench down in the basement that I need to get out of there to make room for some other equipment on that project. And I think that bench is going to fit perfect here. I need to repair the top, and I think I'll try to get to that this afternoon. But it will fit right in here and give us just another work surface, or more importantly, a place to pile things while I'm working so they're not getting piled on that workbench. Sometimes you just got to have that horizontal surface just to get things out of your way. Like a place to put my camera bag, extra batteries, lights, things like that. Now, the little single burner gas forge that I've been using over here has been super handy. Really glad to have it. Heck, there are days that I come over from the main shop with a project that just doesn't need the big heat that the ribbon burner forge produces, but it's too big to do in the induction forge. And I wouldn't light a coal forge, even if the coal forge was up and running. It's just not worth lighting for a 5 or 10 minute project. And this little single burner forge has really been nice for that. So it will probably stay in here even after the coal forge gets set up. In fact, this anvil will probably stay in here, but I don't intend for this to be the centerpiece of the shop. I've always planned to move it. So if you've been annoyed by how ringy it is or how bouncy it is because I haven't taken the time to really do a permanent installation of this anvil, it's because it's temporary. I'll probably still keep it around because it's handy. It's got some shapes other anvils don't have. The second horn, the square horn, can be a really handy thing to have available. So it will probably live in this shop for a long time, but it's not going to be the main anvil. Matter of fact, I got somebody coming today that's going to take care of that problem for us. In fact, I think they're here now. Lift it, or do we want to come up with a better plan?
Oh, I don't know. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So Chuck has brought us an anvil and donated it to Black Bear Forge for the purpose of setting up this hand tool shop so we can make better videos over here. He says it came out of a mine shop, and looking at the damage on it, I think that sounds pretty darn reasonable. Poke marks where they used to test chisels and picks and things like that after they'd reshape them and reharden them. The edges are a little bit rough. They've been welded up and not welded up as well as you might like. I'm not sure if I can do a better job, and I don't know if I'm going to try and fix that or not. Maybe in the future we'll get around to it. But for now, I think I'll just grind anything out that's really bad or sharp or has a chip in it. Hardy hole looks like somebody's used a cutting torch around it. And that's something else can be fixed if I need to, but isn't a deal breaker. I think that hardy hole is about the same size as the tools for my other anvil, so we can use some of those on here. There's no name or other markings on this anvil other than the damage from whatever use and abuse it had in its earlier life, but it's a good solid anvil. I'd like to take a moment and thank Skillshare for supporting the videos here at Black Bear Forge by sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes to choose from. I've been using Skillshare for 3 or 4 years now, well before they ever asked me to do a sponsored video for them. Lots of different classes. I take classes in video production, lighting, sound, editing, things like that. And it really comes in handy, and I think it's really improved the quality of the videos that I'm able to produce here on YouTube. As I look at getting back into woodworking a little bit more seriously, I've been looking at some of their offerings on woodworking, and I found one from an old friend, Ann Briggs. You might know her as Ann of All Trades right here on YouTube. She's got a nice little class on beginning woodworking through green woodwork with spoon carving, and that has been a real interesting class. Nice refresher. I've done all that stuff before, but it's been a long time and I would really like to do it again. If you're trying to turn your blacksmithing hobby into a small blacksmithing business, perhaps online, Skillshare has lots of classes that'll help you out, from online marketing, social media, how to sell at craft shows if you're selling in person. If you want to expand your creativity and learn something new, Skillshare is offering a free 1-month trial for the first 1,000 people that use the link in my video description. Now let's get back to work getting this anvil set up so we can get back to work doing some blacksmithing. These old wrought anvils ring like a bell. It's generally considered a sign of quality in an anvil and is a good thing when you're buying one. But you don't need to listen to that while you're working. My preferred method to quiet an anvil down is to bed it in silicone on top of the block. This really helps deaden the ring. It's bonding the steel anvil to the wooden stump, and they vibrate at different rates. There are other ways to deaden the ring of the anvil, wrapping it in chains, adding magnets. We may actually do a combination of those depending on how well this works. But my old hay button I had in the other shop, silicone was really all that kept it from ringing, and it was a very pleasant anvil to work around, much better for your hearing. The general standard is anything over 85 decibels, you need to be wearing hearing protection. This anvil maxed out at about 87 decibels. Once the silicone's had a chance to dry, we'll test it again, see how much quieter it is. Either way, it's probably still a good idea to wear hearing protection, just not strictly required if it's not that loud. Now the silicone usually holds well enough that if you want to put this on a newsstand later, you've got to use a pry bar to break it free. Not very hard to do, but it does hold, it does last. But even so, I would like to secure this a little bit better just to guarantee if I'm really working on it hard that I don't break that bond and knock the anvil off the stump. So I'm going to put a couple of braces between the feet of the anvil so it can't move around on the top of the stump. And then I'll still use the traditional method of chaining it down. And this anvil ought to be rock solid, or at least as solid as it can be without being set in the ground. The stump is still going to wiggle on the ground one way or the other. Well, that should be good and solid. Hopefully it is quieter than it was before. Certainly not as ear-piercing. It changes the tone of the anvil. We'll have to check and see if it's any quieter though. Still fairly loud, but below the threshold that OSHA sets, if you care what OSHA thinks. Again, probably not a bad idea to wear hearing protection if you're going to be forging all day on an anvil like this. So this has silicone. It's on a wood stump. Let's try a magnet. This is a nice powerful disc magnet. Looks like we actually come up to 84 decibels, so it just depends on where you're hammering. I don't think the magnet makes that much difference. Now it is nice to have a place to store your hardy on an anvil, so let's try this anvil out and use the scrap I cut out of that angle iron to make a little hardy tool holder. I'd like to thank Chuck for donating this anvil to the videos here at Black Bear Forge. Also like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. But mostly, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for stopping by to watch the videos. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.